Brad, the wine consultant at Kosherwine.com. Welcome to our first wine webinar, first of many, hopefully. The idea that we kind of came up with was to taste through some of these wines that are new to us or a new vintage coming in. Vintages and wines change so often, and we're getting new ones all the time. And we get so many questions from our customers asking, well, how does it compare to last vintage? Or what's it taste like? Can you give us some tasting notes? So we figured, you know what, let's highlight some wines. Let's get them out there in front of you, and I'll taste them along with you. So that's kind of the idea for the webinar. If that sounds exciting to you, certainly sounds exciting to me. The point is to have it as educational as possible, but honestly, we want to have fun, right? I want to point out some things maybe that you didn't know before, learn a little bit, have some fun, and hopefully kind of entice you to try out some new things maybe that you haven't had before. So that's kind of the goal. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm about 4 months in on my tenure at Kosherwine.com. I've been in the wine industry about 10 years. I started as a cellarette down in an amazing winery in Napa Valley. Decided that winemaking wasn't for me, moved over to the sales side, the hospitality and sales side, eventually moved over to the East Coast from Napa, and started selling wine to restaurants and retailers. And now I found an amazing and happy home at Kosherwine.com, sharing some great wines with all of you guys. So that's a little bit about me. We have got 4 wines today. All of them are from Israel. All of them are very different and very unique. Let's just get started. So first up, we've got this really special wine from Jezreel, the Jezreel Pet Nat, made out of a rosé of 100% Carignan. I don't even know. And if you take a look at this, so the cap on the bottle is not a screw top, and it is not a cork, right? That is a old school soda bottle top. So what is that doing on a wine? Here you ask, although I don't. This is a Pet Nat. Pétillant naturel is the French word that Pet Nat comes from. What it is you take a wine while it's still going through primary fermentation. You stick a bottle top on it, right? So what that does is any sugar that was left in the bottle that still needs to ferment will finish fermenting, and the yeast will be in there and everything, but it'll trap some of the carbonation so when wine's going through fermentation, yeast eat sugar, turn it into alcohol, and they burp out carbon dioxide, right? So if we put a bottle top on the bottle, we trap some of that carbon dioxide in the bottle. So what you do is you get a slightly effervescent, naturally effervescent wine. So it adds a lovely texture to the wine. And because there's pretty much everything in the bottle that was in the bottle when it was fermenting, it's certainly not clear. So I don't know if you can see through that bottle, but it's got, lots of sediment and stuff floating in there. So we're gonna pop it open. You need a bottle opener to pop it open. Best thing to do is to certainly drink this chilled. Oh, on that note, I want to let you guys know that everything that I have today, I am treating as you would at home. So like I'm chilling the Pet Nat because you guys would chill the Pet Nat. I'm chilling the Chardonnay and keeping it closed because you guys would do that too. With these 2 reds, they're a little bit bigger. They need a little bit of air. I popped them open an hour ago. I didn't taste them, but I popped them open and poured out a little bit so we had a little bit of air getting in there. I'm allowing it to breathe and open it up. So if you guys can see, that's pretty bubbly, right? Pretty big bubbles in there. And that's not just condensation. This is not a clear wine at all. It's beautiful, but it is not a clear wine, right? You can see how it's definitely got some sediments and stuff in there. And that's just because everything is naturally in there, right? Nothing was taken out of there. The fermentation happened in the bottle and they stuck a top on it. So really unique. And for that reason, it's going to have some secondary notes that are not just fruit, right? So a lot of rosé is just kind of fruit forward, lovely, easy drinking. This is going to have a little bit more complexity to it, which is kind of interesting. So let's try smell it. So first thing is kind of like an apple cider note on the nose. And then some really light kind of strawberry, like strawberry juice. And then a little bit of, imagine like, you know, when you're making challah and you do the second rise, and you just smell that slight bit of fermenty yeastiness. Imagine that. That's kind of comes across. But underneath all of this pretty fruit, right? Or underneath all these apple cider notes and the strawberry notes. So it just kind of adds to the edges of it, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm getting on the nose. Really jumps out the glass at you. I am swirling the glass to try and volatilize the esters, right? So there are flavor compounds in the wine. When I swirl it, you get them to jump out of the glass at you. This was already jumping out the glass as it is. But for me to really smell it, you can just swirl it up a bit and get in it. If you are having trouble smelling a wine, getting any aroma, put your hand over the wine and swirl it and trap those volatilized esters in there and then stick your nose in. And you'll get a lot more aromatics. So interesting little trick. Okay, let me taste it. So that strawberry note from the nose really comes through on the palate. This is like the ripest strawberry you've ever bitten into. It is juicy. It is not outrageously high acid. So it's got some acid, and especially with the bubbles, it makes it have a feeling of higher acid than it actually is. So it's not like ripping the enamel off my teeth or anything, but it definitely has some nice acid to make it fresh and crisp. It's like I said, that strawberry note. This is like a powerfully packed with flavor rosé. It is those slightly yeasty edges really show through on the palate. The apple, it becomes almost like an apple skin on the finish. Like imagine just like peeling an apple and then chewing on the skins afterwards. So it has almost like a textural element, if that makes sense. When you make a rosé, you leave the skin in contact with the grapes for a period of time, right? So for a red wine, you leave the skin in contact with the grapes for days, if not weeks. For a white wine, you squeeze the juice off the grapes and you ferment it, just the juice, right? So that's kind of the major difference between red wine and white wine. Whereas with rosé, you leave the skin in contact with the juice for a shorter period of time. But because of that, you get a little bit of tannin extraction from the skins. So that's why you get a little bit more texture on this wine, which is really cool. It makes it much more interesting than a white wine made in this style. And yeah, just a really unique, delicious, tasty wine. I highly recommend trying it. If you guys are wondering why I'm making that noise, I'll tell you now. I am sucking air through the wine in my mouth to try and get more aroma out of it. You have a lot more olfactory sensors at the back of your nose than you do up front. So if you suck some air through it, you really get a lot more aromatics in your mouth. As you guys know, taste is like 90% smell, right? So if you're sucking air through it, I mean, you don't have to do it at the table. It's kind of weird and rude, but I'm doing it here because I really want to taste it and get that across to you.
Brad, yeah. So you said this is 100% Carignan, right?
Yes.
Is that unusual? Is it usually like Syrah, Grenache for a rosé? Is this unusual for it to be Carignan?
So that is interesting. It's not terribly unusual. It's somewhat unusual in higher quality wines. Carignan is a grape that you can grow very vigorously. So it grows really easily and well. And for that reason, a lot of like grocery store level wines are made out of Carignan. That's not the case here. This is old vine Carignan made. They limit how much each vine produces. so you get much higher quality. You can make a rosé out of any wine, out of any red grape in the world. And I mean, especially in the New World, you're getting rosés made out of grapes that have never traditionally had rosé made out of them. Carignan is known for rosé, but Carignan in general is not known for super high quality wine outside of a few specific regions. And that's actually one of the interesting things about Israel. They've kind of really embraced Carignan because it's so heat tolerant and it's so late ripening. So Carignan does really well and did really well in Israel. So any Carignan that's still around from back in the day, those old vine Carignan, it's, as a vine gets older, it produces less fruit, right? So if you had a vine that was producing so much fruit, and as it gets older, it produces less and less, it can still have enough in its older age, I'm talking 30, 40, 50-year-old vines, to be economically viable, if that makes sense. Whereas Cabernet and Chardonnay, when those vines get too old, they just don't produce enough to make it at all economically viable, and then wineries pull them up and replant it. So that's kind of one of the cool things about Carignan, and specifically Carignan in Israel. There's a lot of old vine Carignan, not a lot, there's a decent amount of old vine Carignan, and we get to get some really cool stuff out of it. Next up, we've got our old standard Chardonnay, right? So this is from Tabor Winery. This is their Adama range Chardonnay, which is kind of their mid-tier range. Chardonnay is quick note here. It's a twist top. You saw I didn't twist the top, I twisted the foil. If you guys have ever twisted the top of a wine and then the whole foil moves and then you've got like a huge mess and you have to get a knife out to cut it open, if you twist the foil, the cap will release. So Chardonnay is a neutral grape. Chardonnay by itself isn't really aromatically over the top. It doesn't have a huge amount of fruit characteristic, but it's kind of like a blank canvas. So you can express terroir through it, right? And terroir is kind of a magical word that nobody really has a full definition of. But if there is like a chalkiness in the soil, it often expresses itself through Chardonnay. People describe it as a transparent wine because you can really see the earth through the wine. But because it's a blank canvas, the artist, right, the winemaker, can also kind of brush it with whatever they want. So you'll very often find Chardonnay is oaked. And when people oak wine, think of it like the spice cabinet, right? They're grabbing different flavors and adding them to the wine. So this wine is lightly oaked. It spends 4 months in French and American, if I'm not mistaken. It just says oak, and it doesn't say on the website. I think it's French and American. So they make the wine, they ferment it in barrel, and then they leave it in barrel for 4 months before bottling it. So for that reason, you're going to get a little bit more rounded shoulders on this wine. It's going to be, it's not going to be like crisp and rip your mouth open. It's going to be creamier, more rounded, fuller bodied, probably have a little bit of like butter and kind of interesting oak notes. I'm just saying that without tasting it, but we're going to taste it. We just got the 2017 in. We had the 2016 in for a while, just got the 2017 in. So this is a brand new, we've had the Pet Nat for a while. This is a brand new vintage, literally, we just got it in. So yeah, a little bit, I mean, you saw, I just popped this wine open and it's a bit cold. For that reason, it's going to be a little bit aromatically subdued. So I'm going to give it a second, get some air into it. And there we go, it's already opening up. So I'm getting that real traditional kind of oak influence, and it's very subtle, but to me it smells like, it's so hard to describe, you know, like we try and use these descriptors to describe something that's its own thing. But if you guys have ever had like really high quality Burgundy, specifically Chablis, that that like minerality and oak influence is so well balanced on this nose. A little bit of like stone fruit, so like maybe some nectarine or something like that. So David asked, I see that you're aerating the white wine, but did not take the top off in advance as with the reds. Do whites benefit from longer aeration? They absolutely do. My thought with this was, if you've got a twist up sitting in the fridge, and on Tuesday night you're making some baked salmon, you're like, let's open a bottle of wine. We happen to have it in the fridge. I kind of wanted to make, cool, we're going to pop this, drink it on a Tuesday night. And that was my thought. I think that most wines would do great with a little bit of air. So if you can plan ahead and open this 20 minutes ago, you will have a different experience. Now, on the other hand, I do actually enjoy seeing a wine evolve in front of me, right? That's kind of an exciting thing to me. Sorry, getting attacked by flies here. So I do like to pop a bottle of wine open, taste it over before the meal, while I'm cooking, over the meal, and then maybe have a little bit left at the end of the meal and see how it evolved and see how the tastes changed. So I do like that. But if you want to have, bam, the best experience right off the bat, and I've got you guys for 15, 20 minutes right now. So I want to have the best experience off the bat. That's why I aerated the reds. And the Chardonnay, I want to experience it like you would experience it on a Tuesday night, if that makes sense. This is really cool. So this has like a bit of a savory edge to it. This is so weird, but it almost has like a sweet corn flavor, which is super interesting. And I think it's some sort of interplay between the oak, the minerality, the acid, and it's just reminding me of like biting into one of those awesome bright yellow summer corns. And that's not really a tasting note that you would often find in Chardonnay. But if you guys know, like when you bite into it, almost like corn candy. Does that make sense? Corn candy, that you get on Halloween. I'm not American. I don't know what the word is. You know what I mean? It tastes kind of a little bit buttery, a little bit like corn, very sweet. That's what this reminds me of.
Brad, can you compare it to the 2016? Have you had the 2016?
So this is drinking younger, which I think is great for this wine because it's the acid showing through really in a prettier way. The oak is much more balanced in this wine. Candy corn, it is called candy corn. Thanks. I'm loving this wine. It's the acid showing through a bit brighter than 16. The oak is slightly more in balance in this. The oak was, in a 2016 white, the oak was starting to show a bit more on the edges of the 2016, whereas the 2017, it's still kind of linear and focused. And the wood really interplays with the acid in a significant way, if that makes sense. I think, for the price point, that's a killer wine.
$14.99, Greg.
$14.99. Thank you, Isaac. Great deal for, you could be drinking this every day. Also, as a heads up, we will have a deal on these wines because you guys are attending. If you use the code webinar5 for the next 2 weeks, you will have 5% of any of these wines that you add to your cart. The pet number was $32.99, killer wine. Okay, next up, I'm going to bring the reds to the fore. We are going to taste Chardonnay the Trio. So if any of you guys recently got the Black Friday in July mixed case that we put out there on like a Wednesday, Black Wednesday in July, the Chardonnay Trio was featured in that case and it's on your way. Because that was such a success, we actually sold out of this wine. We have the new vintage in stock, and it's same blend breakdown, same profile. I apologize, I'm not tasting that vintage, but I will talk to you about this wine. And we're running out of time a little bit. Oh, there we go. Eric's got one. He's drinking it tonight, so we'll talk about it. Me and Eric will have a private conversation. No, I'm kidding. It's going to be a very similar profile to the 18. So, Shiran is from a winemaker named Eli Shiran. It's a family affair. It's from our Garage Winery series. So in 2017, the CEO and EVP of Kosherwine.com went over to Israel for 10 days and kind of searched out all these tiny little micro wineries all across Israel, and they found a handful of them that had the quality to export, but with such small players that they didn't really have the platform. So Kosherwine.com made a deal with them. We're the exclusive retailer and importer of these wines. So Shiran, like I said, a small family operation. These are true garage wines. This is literally made in Eli's garage. It's not saying you don't need like a state-of-the-art winery to make spectacular wine. You can make great wine in a trash can in your garage if you want. I mean, Eli is way more sophisticated than that and has a whole lab set up. But there is the ability to create quality wine if you have the love for it. So his whole family is involved. He's making these really cool and interesting, unique blends. This one is Old Vine Carignan, Petit Syrah, and Petit Verdot. This is probably the only blend of those three varieties in the world. Like, first of all, Petit Syrah is a very rare, like people hear about it a lot and they think it's, they think it's synonymous with Syrah. And yes, it has heritage of Syrah, but it's its own thing. There's only about 10,000 acres of Petit Syrah planted, mostly in California, a little bit in Australia, and a little bit of it in Israel. I think 3% of the vines in Israel are Petit Syrah. So this is just an interesting blend. Carignan, as you guys know, has that Mediterranean kind of feel to it. Petit Syrah is boisterous and fruit forward and a bit over the top. And then Petit Verdot kind of restrains everything and holds everything back because it's got that tannin structure and backbone. So it's a really interesting, unique blend from Eli, and that's the cool thing about the New World. That's the cool thing about Israel. Like, you can do whatever you want, right? You can just, there's no rules. There's no, like in Bordeaux, you have to use these varieties. In Burgundy, you have to use these varieties and you have to plant them this way. In Israel, do whatever you want. Just make great wine. That's the cool thing about it. So on the nose, cherries, like cherries for days. Cocktail cherries, like maraschinos. That's cherries, and then strawberries. And it's like just jumping out the glass at me. It's this is an intensely aromatic wine. Okay, so on the palate, what really shows through for me is the acidity. Acidity is hard to kind of identify in red wine, but this wine, I know it sounds a bit gross maybe, sorry, but if your mouth salivates, that means that this wine's got acid. So next time you drink wine, see if your mouth is salivating. If it is, then you're picking up the acid, and that's an interesting way to see in red wines, because red wines have tannin and so much flavor that you can't actually judge the acidity sometimes. That strawberry, I just drank that because it's so darn tasty. High acid, refreshing almost. Cherry, strawberry, bright red fruits, a finish that goes on, still going, like that goes on forever. I think that if you are making anything with sort of Mediterranean, if you got za'atar on your chicken, if you're mixing, if you're marinating some steak or something in cumin, I think this is going to work with any of these flavors. Okay, so all these wines that we sell are Hechshed. This is Star K and another Hechshed that I'm not familiar with, Kosher Lemahadrin for Pesach. Everything that we have is Hechshed. If you go to our website, all the wines will be Hechshed. Yes, there are a lot of non-Hechshed wineries in Israel. The ones that we sell are 100% Hechshed. Thanks, Ali.
Can you show us the label again?
Sure. So the label has changed on the trio, but it's called Shiran. But this is from a new winery in Carmel. Moshav Carmel is where it's based. And it is La Forêt Blanche, the White Forest. It's an allusion to a line in Shira Shirim, talking about, sorry, that's Talpiot. It's the Talpiot red. Talpiot is a word in Shira Shirim. I don't really know what it means. I think it means like turrets or made beautifully. I'm going to go with made beautifully because this wine is made beautifully. It is a blend of 80% Cabernet, 7% Petit Verdot, 7% Shiraz, 6% Merlot, 6 months in French and American oak. This smells right off the bat like good Cabernet, if that makes sense. This is dark fruit, plum, but fresh. None of those like dried, stewed notes. This is fresh, dark fruit on the nose. I mean, look at the color. It is beautiful, dark, almost purpley. Okay. This is a extremely approachable young Cabernet. This is a 2017 vintage. This is a wine that you can drink yesterday. This wine is completely approachable. The tannins are super silky smooth. They're dancing across my palate in a beautiful way. Those plum notes, the cherry notes, those dark fruit notes are all showing through on the palate. It's like a symphony of flavor on my palate. It is delicious, and I just really want a steak right now, if that makes sense. I think this is a wine that could age. You could lay this down for a little while, but in general, it's drinking so well right now. I wouldn't want to necessarily hold on to it because it's so tasty. So often these wines, we open them up and you can tell that they have potential to be great, but they're not there yet. This wine, you pop open and it's ready to go right now. For $26.99, honestly, there's not a lot of great Cabernet in that price point, specifically coming out of Israel. And I think this is a great new addition to the lineup. Guys, I want to thank you so much for joining me. Shabbat Shalom. I hope you had a meaningful fast yesterday. I hope you have some wine available to enjoy tonight. And the discount code, one last time, is webinar 5. Webinar 5. If you don't remember that, email me, brad@kosherwine.com. Okay, I'm available anytime. Shoot me an email if you don't remember, or if you just want to chat, or if you have any questions about this or any future wines. I am a resource and available. There we go. Eric just shared it.